Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for another discussion. My name is Dr. Regina Hill, and I have two amazing guests with me tonight. I'm going to introduce them in just a moment, but I do want to give a disclaimer for our topic tonight. We will be discussing some content that may be triggering for you. If you feel the need that you need to leave this broadcast, I ask that you will check out some resources online to get the necessary help that you need. You can go to www.stopitnow.org or www.rainn.org, or you can go to www.thehotline.org. So to jump into our discussion, I'm going to introduce our panelists and then kind of give the reason why I wanted to do part two to this. First, I have the amazing Marla Godette with us. She is well known in the South Bend area for just being fly and fabulous, but let me read off her bio. For over a decade, Marla has become a highly requested clinician for her work with children and families from underserved and disadvantaged situations. She specializes in care of those diagnosed with chronic mental illnesses and offers services to individuals transitioning through life changes such as career, academic changes, financial hardship, illnesses, and divorce. She earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan, where she took on a trifold concentration and studied anthropology, sociology, and psychology. She earned her master's degree in counseling from Central Michigan University, and she is currently pursuing her doctorate degree in global leadership through Indiana Tech in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Please help me welcome Miss Marla Godette.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And then we have my sister, my friend. We go way back, like two flats at IU. So Ashley Gilmore, she is a licensed clinical mental health counselor, associate and national board certified counselor. She is the founder of Gilmore Counseling and Consulting Services, PLLC, and clinical coordinator at Structure Family Interventions, LLC. Ashley works to educate, inspire, and elevate individuals and families, groups, and organizations towards emotional and mental wellness. She has obtained her degree from Purdue. We're not gonna hold that we're not gonna hold that against her. From Purdue University, Indiana, and Capella University. She is the wife and mother, an advocate for self-care and uplifting the African American community. Thank you, Ashley, for joining me. So I wanted to do, thank you for being here, girl. So I wanted to do part two of the discussion from last week. We talked about trauma and we kind of walked through my mother's life because my mother has experienced so much trauma from the beginning of early ages through her adulthood. So there are several different topics of discussions of trauma that she went through. And so I wanted to have part two because I wanted her to share her story. Then my mother is a pastor, so she can kind of give some of that spiritual encouragement. But I also wanted to have another discussion with some clinical experts to talk about the effects of trauma. So that is why you all are here tonight, to give me your expertise. So in my mom's story, there's issues of abandonment, of sexual abuse, physical abuse and violence, death of loved ones, and then just unpacking that trauma at an older age. And so I kind of wanted to touch on those topics for people who have some shared experiences as my mother or as myself, to talk about how they can overcome those traumas and those challenges that they are faced with. So let's talk a little bit about abandonment. And so Ashley, this first question is for you. When a child is abandoned, the idea or core belief is established that they are unloved or unwanted. What are some of the key symptoms children display from abandonment?
Yeah. So a lot of children that I've seen have really struggled emotionally with anxiety or depression. So it's almost like that skin to skin contact when you're a baby. It's like at a certain age when you don't have that, you start to feel rejected, you're depressed by not having the love and support that you desire. A big factor is social anxiety because you're afraid of being rejected in smaller or larger settings. And so you have a hard time connecting with people in those areas. Low self-esteem is a really big one. No one likes to feel rejected, but a child who feels abandoned or rejected by a parent definitely struggles with some internal self-being, some self-worth. And so those are primarily the big ones that I've seen. So a lot of social anxiety, some depression, and some low self-esteem.
Yeah, Marla, talk about how those symptoms follow children into adulthood. How does that translate over into being an adult and trying to establish relationships?
Sometimes what happens is, like Ashley said, all of these things have been established as a child. And now as an adult, I really do want connection. I want to be with someone. I want a family. So in order to know that these people aren't going to leave me, I may become clingy. I may become needy. I may be seeking to please. So when people say people pleasers. So I may put up with certain amounts of abuse because I don't want you to leave me. They're looking for that comfort of someone always being there. It may be that they become the person who gets used, so to speak, like being taken advantage of, because they would be so free to just give because all they want is someone, to be there, to know that person's not going to live. And that anxiety that was established young, like Ashley was talking about, it continues. So that anxiety just becomes extreme to the point where you could have generalized anxiety disorder, where you're in a constant battle, where it's a small group, a large group, because you're always in a fight.
Yeah. So for both of you, what advice would you give for those who are struggling with abandonment issues, or who feel like their parents are emotionally unavailable? There are a lot of people who experience abandonment issues in different ways. There are some absent fathers, there's some absent mothers, there are children in the foster care system, children looking to be adopted. What advice would you give those who are looking to heal from having parents who abandoned them, or emotionally disconnected parents?
Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah. Thank you. I think forgiveness is a really hard concept that I think is hard to learn and hard to develop and hard to kind of execute. And so I think a lot of internal introspection is necessary, because you've got to figure out like what emotion you're feeling. Are you angry? Are you sad? Are you abandoned? So I think first identifying that emotion is necessary. But then working with a therapist, a support system, a church, an assortment of social networks and connecting people to help you pinpoint like how to forgive, I guess, appropriately, for lack of a better word. Again, that concept of forgiveness is so hard that it's hard to teach it. It's hard to teach it. The Bible can say, Jesus will say to turn the other cheek, but how realistic is that for a child to forgive their parent for abandoning them as they've aged? And so I think some introspection is necessary as an adult. Identify the emotion that you're feeling, but also work on how to forgive yourself, because I think that there can be some emotional, harboring that one is holding, and then work on how to forgive, that person with a strong support system. I think forgiveness is key, but it's really hard at the same time.
Right. I agree, Ashley. Forgiveness is a part of the process, Regina. It's that individual counseling, because you got to now get rid of the negative voices that are saying you're such this horrible person, that everybody gave you away. Oh, your own mother didn't want you, so why would she want you, or why would he want you? You got to work through all of that individually, and then be open to, how do I work through this with that person? And that sometimes can be very difficult to even think about. Well, that's my mother. I'm not going to talk to them about that. Well, yeah, you are, if you want to get healing, or at least going through it with the therapist, processing, what does this look like in this conversation when I speak to this person? Are they going to give me what I want to hear? And if they don't, what does that look like? And how does all of that affect me? The process of the individual therapy can be so intense and so long in this, and so hurtful. People don't like to continue because they're still feeling that pain and they just want to be healed. But I encourage people listening, if you can continue on through that process and get to that point, like Ashley was talking about, of forgiveness, then you can go into that conversation with that other person and letting them know, hey, what was this about? What happened? Well, I'm going to forgive you for that. It's almost like being abandonment issues fall with grief. So you can handle grief the same way. It's not just death of a person, it's death of a relationship. Like the idea that I had of a mother, daughter, dad all together, I have to grieve the loss of that relationship. It never happened.
That's so good. I love that you guys talked about forgiveness. My mom said last week, forgiveness is for you, not for the other person. And Ashley, I love how you said you have to forgive yourself, because so many people walk around with so much guilt, so much shame that they hold on to, that they put on themselves, and they don't know how to forgive themselves. Talk a little bit about, either one of you, what does it look like to start to forgive yourself? That is something that I know I had to work through with some of my issues, but it was hard to do the work within to forgive my own self, to let things go. So talk about what those steps could look like to start to forgive yourself.
Yeah. I think like I said, it's just really, really hard. I think once you again recognize that like something is wrong, I think oftentimes we're going to walk around angry, and angry is a secondary emotion. And so you're angry about something, but you're not really sure what it is. And so then you kind of figure out like, oh, I'm really sad because this thing happened, or I'm grieving this relationship and I'm angry about it more so. So once you identify the primary emotion around that, then you're able to kind of say, this makes me really sad. What have I done, if anything, to cause this? And then that's a really good way to start working through your own grief and trauma of this is something I'm experiencing. Because a lot of times we're carrying something that has nothing to do with us. We are carrying other people's stuff, and it becomes such a major implication in our own life. And so that's how you work through the forgiveness of recognizing this has nothing. Feeling it is about that other person, and we're carrying it, so it has so many negative implications in our own life. And so once we identify that core emotion, then we're kind of able to navigate why we have this secondary emotion, and then that person, we're able to triage kind of our ways around how to I guess exist with that person. But the feelings that we're feeling really have.
Yeah, Ashley, I'm with you on that. I agree. And I'm going to say also, just starting with, if you can really find that good counselor that can help you to break down what forgiveness even is. Absolutely. We have that so twisted up, in society. Oh, forgive and forget, and forgive means that it's all gone away, and forgive. No, none of that is true. So you gotta, I would suggest getting to know what forgiveness really is, the whole concept of it. And if you're a spiritual person, what it means biblically, and not with the societal norms or thoughts to it. There's some things that we've been taught that just, it isn't right. Forgive and forget. Well, if I forget, then I might let you do something to me again. I can forgive you and still not have relationship with you. Sometimes I can forgive you. Look, I'm free from that, but you're not a safe person, so I'm just not going to be around you. Right. And whether that be physically, emotionally, whatever, you're just not a safe person. And that could
family.
Be your mama, your daddy, your sister, your brother. Everybody is not safe for you. And so because I forgive myself doesn't mean I forget myself, right? Forgive and forget. No. So just those concepts of forgiveness and being able to understand what forgiveness really is and what it means. And then, how I address that with myself first.
I think I agree with you, Marla, wholeheartedly. I think society has taught us that when people hurt us, that we have to be in relation with them. And I don't know if I ascribe to that. I agree with you that like, if you're not safe for my emotional well-being, I don't have to have you in my circle. And that's okay. That is really okay. And I think that it's okay for us to be empower people that, like, if somebody is hurting you, you don't have to share that space with them any longer after you've forgiven them.
Thank you, Ashley. And you said it though. You said if they're hurting you emotionally, people don't consider that a hurt.
Right.
If your mother is verbally abusive and dogs you out and makes you feel like dirt, and maybe she has a mental illness and she's whatever, or your father is so mean and nasty that he breaks your spirit, well, people will tell you it's your parent. Like, so what? You just have to deal with it. Now, if they're beating you physically, they'll tell you to get away, but they'll let you hurt emotionally. This is when we have this stigma against things of mental health and emotions. Emotional abuse is abuse, guys. And you cannot allow someone's position in your life to remain just because they emotionally abused you and not physically or sexually abused you. Your emotions and your mental health are valuable.
That's so good. I hope y'all listening and y'all setting some folks free tonight, because that was so good. That was so good. I would say for me, learning to forgive myself, the first step was going to therapy the second time, and being open. The first time I was still sheltered, and I was like, I don't know about you. I don't know if I want to tell you all my business. And my therapist was like, so you gonna come here every week and pay me and not like fully disclose? And I was like, you know what, you're right. So the second time, like, I really opened up, and it was sitting there and her telling me I'm not crazy, that the things that I was feeling, the emotions that I was feeling, the weight that I was carrying, it validated me that I wasn't crazy and that I wasn't the only one. Like, you have this lie that you carry along with you, thinking that you're the only one, and you know, like, you're not the only one, but for some reason you just think you're the only one going through this experience, and you're the only one that has experienced this trauma, and having these emotions and feeling these emotions is normal. So for me, the letting go process was hearing her tell me that I wasn't crazy, that what I was experiencing was normal. And then I could say, okay, like, now let's deal with me.
You start to get free in that moment.
Yes, you get free in those moments. Yes. So let's jump to the next subject of sexual abuse and violence. And my mother talked about her experience with sexual abuse, that she experienced from the age of 7 to 13. And she got pregnant at 13 with my oldest sister, and had my oldest sister at 14. So she was experiencing sexual abuse from her stepfather for 6 or 7 years. I too experienced sexual abuse when I was younger. I don't remember the age because I have mentally blocked out, as a coping mechanism, mentally blocked out some things from my childhood. So I can't remember the age, but I can pinpoint a range just by putting pieces together. And so what I want you guys, or Marla, to talk about, what are some of the signs that a child or a person displays that they have been sexually abused? What are some of the effects?
The signs, or the let's talk about the signs.
Let's talk about both. Yeah.
Okay. So some of the signs are nightmares. We're talking about in children and adolescents right now. Nightmares. They could be distracted, kind of like in the fog, like, hey, what are you doing? Pay attention. More than usual, because we know little kids run anyway. Appetite that increases or decreases. They have trouble swallowing, like, I can't swallow, Mom. I can't get it down, that type of thing. They might have sudden rages and just tantrums, and whoa, where's that coming from? And they could talk about a new friend. This friend could be older, same age, you don't know, but who is this friend? Where do they come from? What are they about? Adolescents, little kids, they may have money that you didn't give them, or a new toy, food. Like, where'd you get all this candy from? Where'd you get all these chips from? Had a girl one time, she had all kinds of clothes, pretty clothes, dressed up, and her mother was like, she keeps bringing these clothes. I'm asking her, where are you getting these clothes? I want to take them back, because you don't take stuff from people. It doesn't matter, it's just my friend. She just gave me this stuff, and they found out it was something different. And then you might be in the bathroom, and the bathroom is normal for you all. Now all of a sudden, don't look at me, I can do it myself. no, I don't want to take off my shirt. And you know, these are little children who are used to taking off their clothes with their parents, you know, in a safe space. So those type of things are things to look out for. And you all, we're talking about with males and females. This, the sexual abuse in boys is real. And so we don't want to ignore the fact that we're talking about abuse, period, whether it's boys or girls. These are things that we need to pay attention to. The effects of that is, you know, you might have some of the children, they may become shut off. They might not do their schoolwork anymore, you know, isolation or social anxiety. All of a sudden you have a child who doesn't mind meeting people or going places. No, mom, I don't want to go. No, dad, don't make me go. I don't feel like it. Or when it's time to go, my stomach hurts. You know, I don't feel good. You know, a lot of psychosomatic type things going on. They have headaches. Pay attention to your children. You know, you got to know what's going on with your children on a daily basis to understand when something odd happens. And what happens is we have oftentimes, Regina, I'm seeing this more and more, people don't know their kids. They don't know what they do. They don't know where they're going. They don't know what they watch. I don't know. They're in their room. I don't know. You know, had a client was cutting, the mom was like, oh, I never saw it. You never looked at your kid. Look at your children. Look at them. Find out what's going on. Ask questions.
Yeah.
They get so mad. So who cares about somebody getting mad? Especially a kid. I don't care about a kid getting mad, y'all. You know, I gotta feed you. I really don't care about you being mad right now. Let's talk about something. So just being, you know, open with them and understand with them. So when oddness comes, you know, and moms will get a gut check. We'll get a gut check so hard, like, what is that? I don't know what it is, but it's something you need to start probing. You need to start finding out.
Yeah. So this is for both of you. Let me back up. And I love how you said you need to talk to your kids. You need to speak to your kids. I held on to my abuse for years, for over 20, 25 years. And I remember my mom trying to open up to me to ask me when I was younger, but she would freak me out and asking me. And it was at these odd moments, I will be riding down the car and she's like, anybody do anything to you? And I'm like, dang, what's going on? Like, what? We on our way to the store, like what? And so she scared me. So I didn't say anything. And the person told me that I couldn't say anything, that it was a secret. So that's where my silence came from. And then I appreciate my mom trying to. Love you, Mom, because I know you're watching. I just didn't think her approach was that great. So for my daughter, because I realize it's a generational curse. So not only do I not have to combat it spiritually, like I have to combat it naturally and have conversations with my daughter. So I started talking to her early on about, okay, if someone touches you, you do this. If somebody do this, you yell, you scream. I'm trying to teach her agency over her body. You yell, you scream, you come tell somebody. I don't care if they say it's a secret, it's a lie. You can tell me anything. We talk all the time. I have these check-ins with her because I want to make sure that I'm doing what I can to protect her, along with the blood of Jesus. So how can parents effectively talk to their children about these issues? And is there an age that's too early?
No, you make sexualization normal. You are talking about your children's bodies from as soon as they can talk. You know, in the bathtub, we're saying, you know, this is a penis, this is a vagina, this is this, and they are very good age appropriate books that go like in series. And so when you're just talking about the natural anatomy that God made you to have this and this and that, they just, it becomes a part of their life story. Like they just know. And so when you're calm about it, they're more calm about it. And then you add those things of what is safe, you know, what is appropriate, what is, you don't want to say like bad touch, because then if someone does something to them, they feel like they're bad, like, oh my gosh, and I'm still good. And it's, you guys, parents out there, if your kids didn't tell and you found out later, don't think you're a terrible parent. Don't think. The best conversations are going on and kids don't tell. they know their parents are going to be there for them. They know their parents are offering this conversation, but they still have so much guilt or shame or what, and it doesn't happen all the time. So don't you take on the guilt like, oh my God, I didn't do the right thing. There are instances though, like old school parents, like my mom, I would never say anything. I didn't have that experience, but I wouldn't even talk about my period because why you want to know about that? What you doing? It's like, yeah. Everybody was just afraid that a girl was going to be pregnant. That's all they worried about. So I would just say making the conversation normal. What do you say, Ashley?
I agree with that. I think also we struggle using correct language. So we say your special place or bikini area. No, guys, it's a penis, it's a vagina, it's a breast. Use the correct terminology because they gonna walk around their friends and their friends are saying the right words, and they talking about, you know, where I put my bathing suit on, or you know, where I wipe. No, have age-appropriate conversations using the correct language, and children are then able to adapt to what's going on. I remember when I, you know, started my cycle, my grandma just threw stuff at me. I don't remember she just threw it at, you know, no conversations about it. And then I developed an unhealthy sexual like nature because I didn't know about it. So like nobody's having conversations about it. So have healthy conversations with your children that are age appropriate, that are realistic, but also if you know your child, like gauge when to have those conversations. You know, sometimes we have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old. The conversations are going to be very different with my 11-year-old than the 7-year-old, because the 11-year-old can cognitively appreciate the knowledge that my 7-year-old may giggle at, you know. And so knowing your children and knowing how to have those conversations, but being realistic and honest with them will actually and may save their lives before we even know it. And so I think that's how you have the conversation.
That's so good. We have to talk to our kids, because I would rather my daughter learn from me than to learn in school from somebody who is her age or older and teaching her the wrong thing. So it's so important. I love how you guys said have those age appropriate conversations, and don't be afraid to have those conversations. Even if your parents didn't have those conversations with you, break that cycle, talk to your kids, because they're going to learn. It's all in the music. It's all in the music now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to do like, you gotta talk to your kids.
You better.
It's sad because we were listening to R. Kelly and didn't even know.
Didn't know. Listen to SWV talking about down. I was like, oh, girl, I thought he was really going downtown.
Let me
he was going downtown for real. No,
this is not what I thought. So yes, it's the music, it's the videos, it's on TikTok, it's everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. My thing too is that Regina said, you know, don't be afraid to talk to your kids. If you are afraid, still talk to your kids. We had this conversation at our church last year. This sex specialist came in and talked to the parents of the youth groups and was just giving some very hardcore statistics. And the parents were like, my kids don't know. They don't know that. Yeah, they do. And the one mom was saying, my hands are sweating. Like I'm never going to be able to say this stuff. I'm not going to be. I'm like, did you hear what this man just said? These young people are having sex. They're doing oral sex because they think it keeps them a virgin. They're having all these like tickety-top parties and sex on TV and, you know, all types of stuff going on. And you're going to tell us what you're not going to do? I told her, I said, well, then you need to come see me so I can help you get over whatever fear you got about talking to your child, because you're going to have a problem on your hand. And I meant that. Like, let me help you through this, because this is going to be a mess in the next couple of years.
They grow up. They don't stay 5 forever. They grow up. And then they learn from somebody else. Like you said, Gina, they're going to learn from somebody else. So that's good, Marla. Yeah.
So how can individuals effectively begin to address the trauma around sexual abuse and violence?
I think by having these kind of conversations, I think we don't, it's hard. But I think kind of platforms and conversations, but I also think we have to believe sexual assault victims. I don't think we believe them enough to give them the space to have these conversations. And I think that that becomes the issue, is that we don't give them a platform because we skirt around it. We don't celebrate that they've, made it out alive. It's a celebration for somebody to be sexually assaulted and still be here. Like that is a celebration. And
I'm here.
Yes, and while they're going through that trauma, we don't celebrate that you have made it. Thank you, ladies, for still being here. And we don't celebrate that. So I think giving this kind of platform, I think the church helps big time. Many of us are strong believers in God and our church. And so allowing the church to have these kind of conversations, but also equipping sexual assault victims to be confident with their own story and their voices, not like your mom, Gina, like to be able to be confident to share the platform and to share their stories, and equips other people to feel confident in that same story.
Agree, because once again, it goes back to that shaming of our bodies and that shaming of anything sexual. We've got to stop that. We don't shame a child for breaking their finger. We take them to the hospital, we get a splint on it, we say, oh, be careful on your bike, and we keep it moving. But if a child starts talking about sex, what are you talking about that for? What do you mean? Don't you say, we don't talk about that. You put the penny between your knees and, all this kind of nonsense. So when something happens, what happens? I'm shamed. So I'm not going to go tell a whole bunch of people now so I can be shamed some more. So we got to really start with breaking this stigma associated with sexuality. And then people will feel more confident in saying, I was hurt, whether it was a finger broken or you attacked my vagina, you hurt me. You did something to me and I'm telling. And guess what? Now I got to go get fixed. Probably more mentally, emotionally. Yep. But if you did something to me physically, I'm going to get that too. So we got to get rid of this thing of sex being bad and all of this. It's too much sex going on in the Bible for y'all Christians to be sitting up here talking about. Don't talk about that and don't do that. I'm like, did they read the book? Did you read?
Did they read Songs of Solomon? Hello. Songs of Solomon is good.
Girl, did they get TD Jakes sheet music? Or what is it? Sheet songs or whatever he was talking about.
That was in the 90s because everybody who got married in the church
that was his CD, honey. That was his CD.
What was it called?
Don't use satin sheets because satin sheets slide. The bishop said that.
When I was younger, I was like, I'm gonna give me some satin sheets. Because of TD Jakes.
TD Jakes said, don't use them slatted sheets, honey. Slatted sheets slide. I said, oh, come on, Bishop. So this is what I'm saying. We have all of this nastiness going on. Ashley, they don't want to talk. So if I get raped, if I get touched, you just told me I'm nasty. So no, I'm not gonna talk. We gotta stop.
What were you saying, Ashley?
They come sit on our couches and can't understand like how to have sex life because nobody's talked to them about it. The church has shunned them, and now like they're afraid to have healthy conversations about it.
Like, come on, y'all.
Yeah, so I want to do another Thursday night. I don't know what these are called. I'm gonna have to sit down and figure out like what to brand these. But I want to do one about sex, but then another one about overcoming sexual abuse, and talk about these things and give a platform and normalize it. There's so many effects that come along with being sexual abuse. Promiscuity is one of them. So you have these girls out here who are promiscuous and people looking at them talking about them hot tail girls and boys and don't know that they've been touched. And then you have people who grow up and want to gain a sense of agency about their sexuality, and they get into these relationships and don't want to be touched, or, you know, don't want to be loved on or hugged or kissed, or, you know, engage in anything sexual because of what happened to them in the past. So I got to figure out how I'm gonna do that. But that's definitely something that's gonna come up, because it's my story, and I need to talk about it more. The more and more I talk about it, the more freer I become. And the more and more I talk about it, I find out that I'm not the only one, and other people are going through the same thing too. And they just want to hear somebody validate their experiences. So I may have y'all back for that one, because we got to talk about this.
Yeah, especially that church stuff. You know, that just grinds my gears. I'm just, woo.
Yes. And I'm, you know, we the body of church. We believe, you know, we're believers. Yeah. We love God, and we can sit here and have a real good conversation about it.
Exactly.
So let's move to the next subject. My mom talked about being physically abused, or she was an abuser because she didn't want to be abused, so she was fighting. But in her relationship, she was shot. She was in a coma. She doesn't know how long she was in a coma. She had a collapsed lung. She still has the bullet within her. So she experienced some violence physically in her relationships. And just in the news the other week, Megan Thee Stallion was shot in the foot by, is his name Tory Lanez? Shot in the foot by Tory Lanez.
Yes.
Yeah, so there are some people who are experiencing not only sexual abuse, but physical abuse, who may be watching this. What are some of the signs that a person is in an abusive relationship?
Definitely, again, it's social anxiety. I'm really big on that. I have a client who's struggling with social anxiety, so it's heavy on my brain. But definitely the inability to be social. So they could be at a gathering, not want to be around people. And so they kind of withdraw from crowds. They withdraw from their friends or conversations. So that's a big one. But definitely the physical wounds. I mean, you see women all the time with wounds on their body. You're not knowing what it is. They have black eyes. They're wearing shades all the time. Losing weight is a really big physical one. They're not eating. They're not conscious of kind of what's going in and out of their bodies. And then sometimes, you know, a really, really big one is low self-esteem. You can have a super fly model, and she gets with someone who is abusing her, and she goes from a 10 to a 1 in a matter of time. And so there's actual physical decline from a person who is physically abused.
There's also that sense of, with that self-esteem, Ashley, there's that sense of perfection. You'll find women who are over the top, like, oh no, don't do that. That has to be just so. Oh, don't do that. You know, they don't want to make any mistakes. If I make a little mistake, it could cost me a black eye, you know, so I gotta be just right. And, you know, I gotta be a size 6. I can't be a 7. I have to be a 6. And if, you know, if I eat too much, I can't go out, and I can't, you know, all that type of stuff. And that physical abuse, man, just, you can see the caking of makeup and, you know, overdoing hair. And I knew a woman I met in one of the shelter programs, and she said that she had to wear all this hair because her hair had been drugged so much that the follicles ended up being damaged, and her hair wouldn't grow on the top anymore. But her husband loved long hair. Like, you love long hair, but you snatch all mine out. So she'd have to do things to make it stay full for him to, you know, drag her. Also, this abuse isn't physical, but sometimes women can't go anywhere. Not going anywhere may be because they're beat up and they don't want to go out, but it might be because they don't have money. You know, oh, you're going to do this? Oh, okay, I'm going to take all your money too. So it's that kind of stuff that, you know, it's signs out there. So I encourage you all, if you have those things going on, to get help. But and those of you who don't, watch your peer group. It's okay to ask questions. I will ask you. If you're my friend and I feel something, if you're not my friend, if I know you and I feel something, I'm going to ask. The worst you're going to do is tell me no or mind your business or whatever. But I want to know in my heart that I have asked you. And hey, guess what? You don't want to tell me? Yes, no, whatever. Here's some information. We got to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice would you give individuals who's looking to break the cycle and get out of abusive relationships?
Marla, I'm gonna let you go.
So I would start with, it's not your fault. If you can get to that point of, this is not my fault, you can take that next step. You don't deserve it. If you could say, I don't deserve this, you can take that next step. And if you humble yourself enough to ask for help, sometimes people are so afraid to ask for help because they're going to call me stupid. I shouldn't be in this position anyway. They told me don't be with her. They told me don't marry him. You know, oh, I got to eat crow. It's okay. Eat crow, spit the feathers out later. Humble yourself and get help. That's the first step, is admitting and knowing that it's not your fault and that you are humble enough to say, you know what, I can get help for this. I don't deserve this. And then seek out the appropriate resources.
Yeah, I echo that. I also think, again, I think introspection can be hard for a victim because they're not sure what's kind of going on with them. And so this tug of war of why am I here, but something is keeping me here. And so I think trying to figure out what it is that's keeping you with someone who's hurting you and where that's coming from can be really, really helpful.
Yeah. Also going back to those of you who are listening, if you have any of that trauma history that we talked about in the beginning, being involved in an abusive, physically abusive relationship is one of the results of having that early trauma history. We think in our heads, you know, I will never marry an alcoholic. I lived with that as a child, or I watched my mother get beat. I'll never be beat. And you can say that cognitively, but you got 86 billion neurons running through your body that remembers all of your experiences. And so with those, what we call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, they are there and your body remembers. There's a good book. It's called The Body Doesn't Forget. The Body Doesn't Forget. And it's like basically saying cognitively, you may think you zapped out of that and you strong, then why are we in this situation? And that's something that sometimes is what keeps us in it. Because we're like, well, I shouldn't be here. you know, like Ashley said, you got to get this into self. Like, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So good. This conversation is reminding me, I think over the weekend, I don't know what's going on. I know some people in the audience know Super Scent. She's a millionaire. She sells the crayon case, the makeup. I don't know the whole story, but she was trending this weekend because she put a post saying, I love myself too. That's why I'm out. So I'm assuming she broke up with her baby daddy. And so many people were just expressing how grateful they were for her to be standing on a platform about self-love. Talk a little bit about how they can get to that point of loving themselves, saying, I love myself too. That's why, you know, I'm leaving this situation while I'm out.
Yeah. One of the activities I do with a lot of my clients is it's a mirror activity where they actually have to hold up a mirror and look at themselves and identify things about themselves that they love. And oftentimes it's harder, and the more we do it, it gets easier. I also have a lot of moms who have children, and I'm always like, what would you tell your daughter? And that always gets them because it's like, if I'm in this kind of life, I don't want this for my daughter. I don't want this for my son. And so I challenge them to say, like, what do you see when you look at yourself? But also, why would you employ this same thing on your children? And so that's a really big affirmations. So we do sticky notes around here. We do the phone notes and, you know, all the godly quotes and all of that kind of stuff. But those are really, affirmations are a really big way to kind of keep talking yourself down from this I'm not good enough to this I'm more than good enough. And so saying those things over and over again, start to believe it yourself, because you're telling yourself that on a consistent basis.
I also would add that sometimes you don't have the ability to get to the people that you need, the ones that are going to pour into you. Oftentimes the abused person is hiding. You know, they're sneaking to the therapist. They're sneaking to the, you know, centers to say, hey, if I come, what does it look like? It's like they're trying to make a plan. If you're listening and this is your situation, you know, or you know someone, tell them to live through someone else for the moment. You know what? I don't think I'm great right now, but that lady Ashley and Regina and Marla, those 3 ladies told me to get up and go. So I'm just gonna live through them right now. You know, I gotta do something to get out of here. And if you don't have the strength sometimes to do it yourself, say, you know what, my mama told me that I did not have to put up with this. I'm out. Well, my mama said I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go. Because sometimes you just can't do it yourself. You know, I had a woman whose children were exploiting her. It was awful. And she was so beaten down. I said, tell them it's your homework. Miss Marla said that you can't use my washing machine. And she did. And when they came over, said, what do you mean? This is my homework. Oh, what? And, you know, our kids hated me for like a year that we worked together, and it's cool. But eventually they started filling that can up with money since you want this to be the laundromat. Sometimes you just got to let somebody else be your strength until you can get your own. But it's safety first. You got to get out of there.
That's right.
Yeah. So good. What are some resources available to individuals looking for help around abuse?
I definitely think the local shelters, the domestic violence shelters, are really big. Durham has 2 to 3 of them. We have the homeless shelter for families. We have 2 domestic violence shelters that are really, really helpful. I hesitate sometimes with phone lines because they can be understaffed. They're necessary, but sometimes they can be understaffed. But I do think in the area, there are tons of resources that are available wherever you are. So I know, like I said, Durham has about 2 to 3 of them. And the church, while we sometimes dog out the church can also be a place of refuge for victims.
I know in this area, there's the YMCA, the YWCA. They actually have a domestic violence program that takes women and children. And that sometimes is the difficult part, because people may let a woman in, but they don't have room for all their kids, or, you know, whatever. So that program is local here. The Center for the Homeless has a program, as well as Hope Ministries. But I'm going to say this very candidly, it's not enough. There's so much abuse going on. Those places fill up like that, and they have good programs. So people try to do what it takes to stay. They're not trying to leave. And so what happens to the person running? And they're like, well, what do I do now? You know, I left and now I have no place to go. So we really, as a nation, have to figure out how we can provide more funding for domestic violence. Nationally, you can always call the, the suicide. There's a domestic violence hotline, but also the suicide hotline can connect you to domestic violence in other places. Those are always 24 hours. And Ashley's right. Sometimes the hotlines with DV, they're just not staffed. The suicide hotline is never, that one they got down pat. So just call like, hey, I'm having troubles. I don't think I'm going to kill myself, but I really need a number. I need some help, and they can direct you. Also nationwide, the Congressional Black Caucus Institute has, if you go to their website, they have a national directory of different agencies that are out there to help people.
That's good. Thank you all for sharing those resources. I want to talk about kind of this myth or this stigma about Black people going to therapy. And so I started going to therapy a few years ago because I realized I had daddy issues because my father was shot and killed when I was 5 months old. So I grew up in a single parent household, and I thought I didn't think I had daddy issues because I was like, it ain't really bothering me. But it wasn't until I was in my 30s and I realized like I have daddy issues and I really need to talk to somebody about it. And it has set me free in so many ways. I love my therapist. She's amazing. So let's talk about why therapy is important to maintain your mental wellness.
I love this question because I think to me, mental wellness is transformed when we go to therapy because we then become self-aware enough to know the things that are bothering us, and we acquire the necessary coping skills, coping mechanisms, interventions, whatever you want to call it, to be able to function with all the stuff that we have going on. We are literally living in a pandemic, in racial tension, the political uprisings. We don't know if we coming or going. I can't even remember what day it is. And because I talk to my therapist, I'm able to understand that like I'm overwhelmed and I can still function with life. I may be drained, I may be tired, but I feel like I have been equipped because I've talked to my therapist about my mental well-being to become more equipped to function with life. I think a lot of people sometimes go to therapy because it's a sounding board, and sometimes they may not want to do the work, but you got to go to therapy and do work. It's just a reality. So we can't go sit on somebody's couch and not do the work. And so many of us have to go to therapy to do the work, to become aware, learn how we can function in this world, and our mental well-being can then function in every other area of our life. So then we can be more spiritually equipped. We can be more emotionally equipped, socially equipped, relationship, financially, all that. Once we focus on our own self-awareness and our mental well-being, it then goes into all these other areas of our life, and we can function in chaos, literally.
I don't know if people caught that you are a therapist who go to therapy. Not only are you there for people, you go to therapy too.
I love that goes to therapist.
I actually broke that down.
I really do.
I am with you, Ashley. Thank you. You just made my response easy. Ditto. I tell people, if your therapist doesn't have a therapist, you need a new therapist, because how do you take on all of that from everybody all the time and you think you are all good? Who does that? Nope. I have a therapist, had a counselor, therapist before I even went into therapy as a field. I believe in help, and I believe in professional help. I know some people talk to their pastors. When you start unloading some of these things and your pastors can't lead you the next step of the way, pastors, let them know that they need to go to a therapist. Okay. Nothing against you, but there's some things that you're just not trained to do. And it's very important that you have that person in your life. And one thing that Ashley said that I love, I just taught this class last night on self-care. And self-care is not a bubble bath and some candles. Self-care is I'm going to my therapy for self-care. I'm getting my emotional health together. I'm going to the doctor and getting my physical health together. I'm going to the church house, the prayer meeting, the side of the bed, wherever I'm going to get my spiritual life together. And then guess what? I'm going to find some resources on how to get my finances together. Because baby, if your finances not right, you're going to be mentally stressed and it's going to make you sick in your body. If your soul is in anguish, you're going to be sick in your spirit and in your emotions, and it's going to mess everything up. Those 5 parts have got to be cared for. Health, the actual definition of health, Regina, is the wholeness of both mind and body with the absence of disease. And in society, we have completely taken that definition to mean the body. We have got to change that definition. It is mind and body. So take yourself to the therapist.
Right. I love how you broke that down, Marla, of all the different areas where you need to have that wellness. And I just want to tell the church people out there, you can pray how the Holy Ghost can pray down heaven, can speak in a Russian tongue, whatever your tongue may be. You can have all of that, and it's still okay to lay on somebody's couch and talk to them. It is just fine, okay? Like I can pray down heaven. I will fight with the devil in tongues, okay? But I still go lay down on somebody's couch and talk. And that's so important. That is so important.
And our pastors need to go, Regina. The pastor suicide rate is off the chain.
Talk about it, yes.
The pastor suicide rate has almost doubled in the last 2 years. Pastors with mental health clinics in their church have died by suicide. Black pastors, white pastors. A man called me and said, "Oh my God, mentor, this pastor just told us a story where his friend, the church was having praise and worship. His friend, who was the pastor, was in his office with a gun at his head. Supposed to be getting ready to go preach." You have got to care for your mental health.
Especially during this pandemic, because my pastor says all the time, he admits, he was like, this is my first time pastoring during the pandemic. I don't know what I'm doing. And so it's so like, he admits it. And I appreciate his bravery for saying it, because we're all living through this and we've never done this before. We've never lived through a global pandemic. We're all trying to figure it out. So it's okay to lay on somebody's couch, do a Zoom call with the therapist, a phone call, FaceTime, whatever, to get that out. This is stressful. What we're living in, it is stressful, and it's hard to navigate. But don't hold that in. Talk about it. Talk to somebody. Get that out, because you're not alone. You're not alone.
And what does not come out, it's not spoken out and dealt with, will be acted out. So we're going to see it. You're going to lose 50 pounds and we're going to wonder. You're going to gain 50 pounds and we're going to wonder. You're going to start yelling and screaming at people. Your hair is going to fall out. You're going to break out in acne. You're going to get IBS and stress attacks. And we're going to see it. So you can sit and try to keep it all in. But what does not get spoken out and dealt with is going to be acted out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the notion of therapy and God coexisting is normal. And I think that we try to not make it normal. The two can coexist and with no problems. And God ordained us the same way that he ordained medical professionals and nurses and everyone else who does their work. Our work is valuable also. And I know God called me to this work. I know that. And I prayed about this work because I knew that this work was valuable to me. Still go to church. And my pastor talks about his mission, and that's empowering for me because he's bold about that. And so I think we need to celebrate that the two can go together, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all.
You are amazing, Ashley. You said, I am ordained to do this work. That's what I'm talking about.
Come on,
okay, that's what I'm talking about. That's saying, look, don't play with me. Just like you think you're a neuroscientist, I'm a therapist. This is my superpower. It's Holy Ghost power, because I am ordained to do this work. Come through. And you are correct with the alignment, because in Proverbs it says, in the multitude of what? Counsel. There is what? Safety.
Yes. Come on.
That's the word of God.
Speak the word.
And I can give you a few more scriptures that all point to the need for counsel. God has already told you that.
That's right.
Y'all better come on here on this here Thursday night.
Man, this Bible study for the week.
Right, this Bible study. Get you some counsel. How can people find culturally competent counselors or therapists? And I'll be the first to say that my therapist is not Black, she's white, and she's filled with the Holy Ghost, but she gets it. And I love that she gets it. And I love that when I leave therapy, she not only gives me a natural assignment, she gives me a spiritual assignment too. But for those who are out here that are just saying, well, I need to have a Latina or Latinx counselor or a Black or an Asian counselor. And we know the field can be scarce with those. So how can people find culturally competent therapists?
Yeah, Therapy for Black Girls is one of them. And there are tons of us on Facebook. We just hiding or we're in our own little bubble. And there are lots of, and I can email you and you can forward them out, but Therapy for Black Girls is a really good one. The insurance providers also should list therapists on the website. It doesn't say what their ethnic background is, but it should say kind of what their orientation is and what they accept. Psychology Today is a really good one. But there are also like tons of us, and word of mouth is a really big thing. So if you need a therapist in your area, I'm sure myself or Miss Marla can find somebody who is culturally aware enough to provide you what you need. But if you can't find one, there are white therapists and other therapists who can be culturally competent if they've done the work themselves. Let me preface that by saying, if they've done the work to combat racism and microaggressions, then they are just as equipped as we are. And so they're everywhere.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a more Latina or Latinx therapist, Miss Marla and I can find some other resources also.
Yeah, definitely. I try to keep people in my pocket. It's not a lot in this area. And what happens is because I don't know, why aren't y'all Black women going into counseling, or Black men, we need you. What happens is we're all full, or we're doing other things. Like, I'm not new to the game, so now I'm doing more corporate work and business work. I have a few private clients. I just don't have full-time clients like that. And so I have, though, because I know if you just want to see someone who looks like you, that may be slim. But when I tell you I got some powerful, culturally humble, culturally competent, culturally aware, and culturally responsive white therapists in my pocket, and all I have referred them to have come back and said, oh my God, Miss Marla, I love her. Oh my God, Miss Marla, oh my God, she is. But these are therapists also who have, this is where that gap comes. They don't take insurance. They don't take sliding scales. They don't. So even still, it's like you got to be able to afford to go. So what are our people supposed to do if they're in a low economic situation? So there's good people out there that have that skill set, but they're not working in clinics. And so we got to help somehow to bridge that gap of the new therapists coming in, or therapists that work in clinics, that they're getting the training. And like Ashley said, that they've done the work. They've taken implicit bias training. They know where their stuff is, because we all got it. Because just because someone's Black doesn't mean that they're culturally competent on your level. We're not monolithic.
Because they're your skin folk, don't make them your kinfolk.
Yeah. We are not monolithic in a society, honey. We are all, Black folks is different. we might all have a big mama somewhere, but we's different, So we have to be mindful of that too, just in learning the questions to ask when you interview your therapist. And if you don't make a connection, that doesn't mean that therapy is not for you. See, I tried, so it ain't for me. I told you. No, I tried. Just like I would change medical doctors, I'm going to look for me a new therapist too. This ain't a good connect. I know a woman had 4 therapists, and I said, you know what? You're just trying to make me be your therapist, and I'm not. So I'm going to need you to get the 5th one. She was like, I like her. Well, no, I'm not taking you.
Yeah.
But she probably could have liked the first 4. So, but she did. She had 4 therapists. She was like, I told you, Marla. I told you. I told you I'm not taking you. Here's another referral. Now, if I give you 5 referrals, then you don't want help.
Right.
Don't save her. She don't want to be saved.
She ain't want her soul, her man, her money, nothing saved.
Oh my God. This has been great, a great discussion tonight. Thank you both for sharing your expertise with the world. I am forever indebted to you. So thank you so much for taking time out tonight to have this important conversation.
Yeah.
Listen, Marla, tell the people how they can find you and connect with you.
Marla L. Godette on Facebook, or Mentoring Moments LLC on Facebook and Instagram. I got somebody does that for me. I don't know. Oh, and then
now that means you big time. You got somebody else running your stuff.
Marla, girl. I mean, I just don't want anybody to know how pitiful I am. Marla at Mentoring Moments with an S, LLC.com.
Okay, Ashley, how can the people find you?
Gilmore Counseling and Consulting Services, PLLC on Facebook. Get Real with Ash G on Instagram. And on the web, www.gilmorecounseling.com.
All right, ladies, thank you so much. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. If you like this, please let us know, share it, comment, send them inboxes. Nice ones, don't be in there talking crazy. Send them nice ones and show them some love. All right, ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
What'd you say, Ashley? Oh, no, I know you will. All right, have a good night, ladies.
Thank you, Miss Regina. Thank you, Ashley.
Welcome.